Okay. Well, welcome everyone. We've got an interesting session this time around. Trying a different format today. My name's Lawrence Heiner. I'm the Director of Training and Technical Assistance at Cal Kappa. And you are here for AI for increasing agency efficiency. And today I have a special guest with us, Crystal Burks, who is the HR Director at the Long Beach Community Action Partnership in Long Beach, California. And I'll let her explain a little bit more about her role as she comes on here in just a second. But today we're looking at an interview format. So I'll be asking Crystal a series of questions that relate to AI and her use of AI. And then we can break for questions at pretty much any time. So if you've got a question for Crystal, or for me, you can drop those in the chat or come off mute and ask those. But we ask that you please raise your hand first, and that'll allow us to kind of recognize you and bring you on to the call. Okay. So enough about me. Crystal, welcome to the call.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. So Crystal, can you tell us maybe a little bit about your role, and then we'll hop into some questions about AI.
Okay, so I am the Director of Human Resources here at Long Beach Community Action in Long Beach. I've been with the agency for I just did 8 years as of last week. Because we are kind of a smaller agency and staff, I am a one desk person, so I'm the only human resources person here. Now, fortunately, we do have other staff that support me. Between our accounting and we do have an executive management team, so I'm not alone, but I don't have a large staff. Our agency is only we're barely at about 50 right now in staff. Since I've been here, we've only been between 50 to 75 staff. So there's never been really a need to have more than one person. Starting here, I started as a generalist and then I kind of worked my way roll up into more of the director role. My role is kind of a hybrid. When my executive director became executive director in 2020, she did not replace her role, which was a chief operating officer. And so we, as the management team, kind of our roles became elevated. So I not only do I do the human resources part, but I'm also kind of her right hand person as well. So I kind of dabble in both in that. Being that said, that you know, doing a lot of the administrative sometimes can be very tedious, and so that's one of the ways. I'm not the most uh, tech savvy person in the world. I will be honest. So I am not, the super electronic guru, but I have kind of utilized AI, ChatGPT specifically, to kind of really help me with a lot of some of my administrative tasks to kind of alleviate that because that was a big stressor for me. I am a good talker. I can write because I know how to write, but when it comes to having to write off the cuff, sometimes that can take me a long time. And so that's something that utilizing AI has really helped me being efficient because I'm pulled in different areas. I'm not just dealing with HR. Sometimes I'm dealing with the agency as a whole.
Good lead in. And Crystal and I had a chance to talk at our most recent conference from Cal Kappa. We had a little roundtable session on AI, and it got very interesting very quickly. And we thought that it would be a wonderful thing for folks to kind of hear, especially as we're dabbling in AI, kind of learning our footing. It's nice to be able to hear what's working, like actively working in our agencies. So that's what we're excited to share today. Um, I've got a few questions prepared for you here, Crystal. So we'll just kind of run through them. I think we've got 7 or 8 questions in here. We'll see how many we get through. And again, as folks have clarifier questions for us, we can pause for those as well. All
Okay.
right. So yeah. So the first one that I've got for you here, if you don't mind, how did you get your start in human resources? Can you take us back to that time?
So my start in human resources goes back all the way to 2012. I think my preparation for human resources has started through my whole career because I started in fashion retail. I was a Nordstrom's girl out of college. And I've worked in sales, I've worked in management, I've worked, and then I worked for University of Phoenix where I was an enrollment counselor, a lead. So I worked in for-profit education. In 2012, I worked for a company called Hudson, which is at the airport. I'm pretty sure many of you have been to the airport and those places where you buy all your soda, your water, they own those, usually those places, and they also have a now at, especially at LAX, they have like luxury stores. So I started out as a terminal manager, so I managed the stores there, but then I worked closely. We only had one HR manager for 300 employees, and I basically worked as her assistant. So that's where I kind of got my foot in of learning about HR, recruiting, dealing with employee relations. So just kind of working aside with her is where I kind of started. And then I worked as I did what's it called, a contract job for an aerospace company where I was a recruiting specialist. So I really got to dive into corporate HR, which was dealing with, aerospace. You're dealing with government contracts. You're dealing with they were at a time where they were a small company that was merging a lot of companies together. And so I've had a chance to see large corporations as well as small. And then that also led me into here, where I started out as a temp as an HR generalist, and I've been here for 8 years. And now I'm the director of human resources.
Wow,
Wow, that's quite an adventure.
totally.
So as we get started into some of the AI stuff here, how were you first introduced to AI?
Well, I kind of stumbled through it. I join a lot of Facebook groups and Reddit groups, like HR groups, and also on LinkedIn. That AI for HR was very useful, and that people should and human resources should really understand how to use AI. And so I pulled up ChatGPT, and that has been kind of my best friend for the last year and a half. And so that's kind of how I got started into it, of just dabbling into ChatGPT to see how I could utilize it, in my everyday work. Because, as we're moving into this world of AI, in the field of HR, apparently you want to be on the no side and not the not no side. So a lot of companies are utilizing AI, and a lot of HR people are utilizing it to be a little bit more efficient, because human resources is transitioning from a personnel paper pusher to more of a strategic business partner. And they've been doing that for years. And I think as we move into this AI world, that's where it's going to be moving. So those who know how to be more of strategic business partners are going to be the ones that are, the last one standing. And so you really got to figure out how to get all that other extra stuff done without maybe having an assistant. And that's where AI comes in hand.
All right. Well, cool. So as you were getting started there, getting your feet wet, learning about AI, I'm sure you started to put some things into practice. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the those AI specific solutions that you started to implement at the CAP?
One of them was just really, one thing here at our agency is when it comes to our language, we like to be very consistent across the board as management of how our language is to our staff. So when we send emails, templates, whether we're sending out a flyer, whether, we're, doing a policy, we're very conscientious of how, our language is verbally and written. And, my executive director, she's a phenomenal writer, and she knows how to write things. She writes just as well as AI. On the other hand, can do that. It would take me about a week, something she could do in a day. AI has helped me allow to do that within an hour. And so some of the things that I've started to implement is just, first I started with just using AI to, if I'm having to send a quick email to a staff member, I would type in what I want to say, and AI would give me different versions. So I can then tailor that version to what makes sense. Because one thing in human resources is that we can be very matter of fact. We can give the straight, but when you're really wanting to make sure how your tone and how you sound, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information, it's really important for that. And that's what sometimes can take me a week to figure out. Now having Chat GPT, I can get an email out in 20 minutes. And so those are some of the things that I've started to use. That's where I started with. Then I started when I had to create different memos. We're really trying to clean up a lot of our policies. We have our handbook, but we haven't done a lot of additional policies. And as we are moving out of COVID and, really getting down to and dealing with a lot of different things with workers' comps and lawsuits, we really want to make sure that we have our T's, cross, our I's dotted. And so creating more policies for staff, creating quick policies for staff, whether it be like dress codes or it could be, clocking in, clocking out, things like that. I utilize AI to help create formats. And then that way we can tailor it to our own. So that's some of the things that I've used. And like I said, I am not Miss Tech Savvy, but that's been very helpful.
Well, it's interesting, and it evolves over time. I'm sure you're still adding to to that list
Mm-hmm.
today, right, with stuff that you're working on. As a sort of as a follow-up to that, um, how did other people at the agency react when you started to use AI? It sounded like you were putting some policies in play and sending stuff out that people are interacting with. So how did folks respond to that?
They responded fine. I mean, they see it's coming from human resources. And like I said, it's very in line with the language we already use. So they don't see any difference because my executive director is very, very, very efficient with making sure that the way our language and how we send out. So it mirrors that. So they really don't notice the difference, I'll be honest with. But it has allowed us to I, for myself, don't feel like, oh God, I got to put something together, that's going to take me a week. It's like, okay, now I can get this out and feel confident that it is the same. And normally I would have my executive director read a lot of stuff before I send out. Now I can just send it out because I know it sounds, the language then it sounds in what our culture is. And so that's kind of, their reaction has been fine.
Okay. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, it sounds like it's almost no reaction, right? Like we
Yeah.
didn't really notice the difference, right?
Right. And the cool thing about ChatGPT is that when you say you want to create a memo about dress code, they'll send you a draft and they'll say, do you want it to be more formal? Do you want it to be more HR compliant? Do you want me to change? So you can continue to change based on how serious, like for example, especially like an email. If I'm sending an email to an employee because say they've missed a few days of work, you can put that in there. They'll give you a template and they'll say, do you want it to be more formal? Do you want it to be more HR compliant? Do you want it to be a little bit more serious? Do you need me to add X, Y, and Z? And so you can do that. And so that's the kind of cool thing. So that whatever the language and the tone you want to send out, because it could be you want to be more empathetic if they've been out because they lost a family member or somebody who just disappeared and you're like, okay, now look, you've been out and this is X, Y, and Z what's going to happen. So that's the cool thing about utilizing it.
Nice. So the next question that I have for you starts digging into why we titled this um, session the way that we did about increasing agency efficiency. So as you think about these tools, and you've hinted at this already, I think, but as you think specifically about AI and efficiency, how do you know for yourself and for your work? How do you know that using AI is increasing your efficiency?
Because I think that's the biggest thing. One of the things for human resources is that tedious administrative. And I only have a staff of 50. I could imagine if someone has a staff of 300. Some people have a staff of 150. And especially working in nonprofit, you may be the person of one. And you may have to respond to emails. You may have to send out memos. You may have to create policies. And that can be very tedious of making sure, one, that you're saying the correct language, and two, that you're getting it out to your staff on time. And so I know for me, it has been very efficient, but it's something that can go across to other departments, especially when you're thinking about training your leads and your managers, because I think everyone can benefit from, especially with just the simple emails. Everyone can benefit from how to send proper emails and how to make sure your tones and things like that. Because even as if someone's a line staff member, sending an email to human resources, they could use ChatGPT to make sure that they're sending it correctly, that they're not sending something, where they're in emotions and anger, or making sure they're asking the right questions. So I think, for me, utilizing it, it becomes very efficient, because that's one less stress that I have to deal with. And if I'm pulled away, or sometimes we're in a meeting, we may be dealing with an employee relation issue, and I got to get something out to them by the end of the day, and it's 4 o'clock. So I know that I can go into Chat GPT and start working on it, versus having to say, okay, now let me sit here and think, how am I going to start the email?
Well, it sounds like you've built some confidence in being able to use the tool. I know that I get nervous about new tools, like and just in time
Mm-hmm.
utilization, like eventually, I'm going to sit there for hours trying to sort it out, but you've got it down to I could do this at the end of the day, like it's increasing
Right.
my ability to
Yes.
respond like super fast. That's
Yes,
really
and I think
cool.
of that because I think the biggest thing for human resources, and I've worked in other organizations, especially when you work for corporate, big the one thing that people complain about is not human resources not responding, not hearing from human resources. So I always make it my goal, because I feel like my customers are my staff. And so when they, reach out, I want to make sure that I'm responding back in an efficient time, that it doesn't get left off the books. And so utilizing this allows me to make sure I can get it done, and make sure that they've been responded to, and that it's documented, because that's important. And I know a lot of people run away from documentation because you don't know how to document. And that is one thing that ChatGPT or some of the other AI resources can do, is make sure help you document. So even a quick email is documented. And I know that's one, I'm pretty sure that's where people stumble on, is because they're like, I didn't know how to send that email. So they just forget about it, versus where, you can type it in, so you can send the follow up. And now we know it's documented. We had that conversation.
Crystal, that relates so much. I can think about my own work and how many times it's just solved that time problem, to be able to just generate stuff pretty quickly that then we can, use our brain to analyze and make sure that it's right, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as we think about like how we're using the tools, it's one thing, and we know our work pretty deeply. You talked about just a moment ago, talking about line staff, direct services
Mm-hmm.
staff that may be able to take advantage of some of these tools. So, um, from your perspective, what other roles at the agency might benefit from using AI, and how might that happen?
I think any role, I think anybody that is working needs to know how to benefit from AI, because this is going to be our world. So I don't care if you work at a front desk. I don't care if you're weatherization and you work out in the field. You Anyone can benefit from AI, because you're always going to have to send something in writing. And whether that be an email to a customer, whether that be an email to your boss, whether that be an email to your coworker, having the right language and tone solves a lot of HR problems before they're HR problems. So I feel like everybody can benefit to some degree with using AI. It may not be there every day, but it is a great way, because how many times have an employee will send an email out of anger, or even just sending a complaint, and it sounds like a run-on sentence, because it's all the information in their head. They just, they're at the by the time we get the information, they're at their boiling point. So it's everything, it's all over the place, and we're trying to sort this out. Imagine if they could go into Chat GPT, type what their issue is, and then it presents to them how to submit it to us. So now we're getting a more concise, with the facts, we're getting, a better tone, we're getting, what they actually are trying to file the complaint for, because Chat GPT will help you with that language, and so you can utilize that. And so just imagine how that would even make our job easier, because now we're not trying to sort through this. But even for them, then they know what they send will then get a faster turnaround, because now we don't have to keep asking them back and forth. Now we can start with the investigation for something simple like that.
That's great. And it sounds like in some ways AI could be there to help save somebody's job, if they were
Yes.
about to say something out of
Yes.
untoward or
Yes.
something like going sideways. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's crazy. And we've been having a very positive conversation right now. A lot of like unicorns and butterflies about AI. But I wanted to start asking you some of having the other shoe drop. Like, what are some of the things that we should pay attention to when it comes to AI? And this first thing that I'd like to talk to you about is, coming from an HR perspective, you'll probably have a take on this. Will AI take over everyone's jobs? That's the big
Well,
fear.
I won't sugarcoat. AI will take away a lot of jobs. It will. It just will. I think in our line of work, especially being in nonprofits, we tend to run very lean and efficient. We don't say you may only have one accountant, you may only have one or two HR people. I don't think it will take away every job because the one unique thing about human resources is we are the liaison between the staff and the agency. We kind of protect both. So they need an advocate, and an advocate can't be an AI person. And for your agency, for your management team, they need someone to basically give the bad news. They need someone to be the middleman, the neutral man. Because, for example, my executive director, her, telling an employee or her firing an employee, then that can cause a whole lot of host of problems and lawsuits because then the person can say, well, she didn't like me, where it was discrimination, things like that. Having human resources is that middle person. And so I believe there will always be roles. What I would say is that you want to be that role because it might be only one. And what AI can do is being efficient in your administrative, so you don't have to deal with all of that, allows you to do that because you may only be the person of one. Or our roles may be moving more into a consultant where we may be doing for several agencies. And so AI still will be beneficial because we won't have to deal with a lot of that extra personnel paper pushing. But will it take over everybody's job? Not today or not tomorrow. Maybe down the line, but I think we'll all be well on to retirement before then. But there will still be jobs. And I think in our line of work, it definitely will be because uh, nonprofit is very similar to small business. And you really do need somebody. You need somebody. We don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the funds, we don't have the legal fees. So you need someone there to keep you out of lawsuits and workers' comps and things like that, which are very big right now because people are hungry, people are desperate, times are hard. And so our roles will matter, but it will be our knowledge that's mattered. And that's why this and have utilizing this tool helps because we'll be using our brains for other things versus just doing a lot of personnel stuff.
Yeah, that is true. We operate on such thin budgets that, and have so many. I can hear it. I'm also a department of one, so I
Mm-hmm.
understand, where you're coming from with that, being able to, I don't know, bring on the skill set of others to help me do my work when I can't hire that skill set from outside. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, and I think we can all kind of relate in different aspects of the work that we do, whether it's HR or finance, in my case, training,
Mm-hmm.
all of this different aspects of administration where the
Mm-hmm.
business could benefit. And it sounds really, really good, right? And you've had a lot of time to tinker and experiment with how to use an AI tool. And I know that many have, but many have not, right? So as we get out into the world and we do roll up our sleeves and start tinkering with AI tools and pay attention to what Crystal has to share with us with templates and that sort of thing, and bots even if you've got those. Um, but this is my last official question for you, and then we'll open up after this. But what are some of the cautions that you have for staff as they go out and start using AI?
Um, one I would like we don't promote it to our staff. Like everybody just use, chat. If they use it on their own, that's fine. We wouldn't promote anything unless we were doing training. And I think we would start with our management teams because some of the things that you do need to be cautious of, especially like in H, people who deal with sensitive information, is uploading that information and making sure that you don't have like for HR. You're not uploading people's resumes. If you're trying to, tweak a letter or a formal email that you're sending to a staff, you don't put names and addresses and things like that because we don't really know the world of AI and where it's going. So we want to be more careful of that. Also, I'm still cautious of, I don't use AI to ask about HR policies, like especially we live in California. I'm not asking about California laws and things like that. If I have specific questions, I use a consulting firm, use your whatever legal you use, but I wouldn't do that because AI, we don't know the efficiency on that as 100%. So I wouldn't take everything I wouldn't ask them about actual policy or California law specific, but you can put your policy and have them tweak the language in it, but I wouldn't use AI in that manner at this point because I don't know if they know 100%, if they're telling the 100% truth. So I wouldn't use it for that, but I would definitely use it to, for, I'll call it grammar things, but I don't use it for that. I would use an actual consulting firm, or something like that for if I have those specific questions.
Gotcha. So we're not willing to like risk legal action based
Yeah.
on what an AI tells us, right?
Yes, I wouldn't do. I would be more cautious of that, and that's something. And even with staff, I would say if it's something that we're introducing to staff, we start with the management team, whatever that management staff is. If it's program directors, making sure they're trained on how to use it, and then if it's something that you're going to implement, depending on the type of staff you have, then I wouldn't, push it out there unless we are giving some type of formal training and guidelines to it. So I wouldn't just tell everybody, yeah, just to use ChatGPT. I wouldn't go there. I would make sure that they understand how to use it, when to use it before we encourage it. Now, if they've already used it on their own, that's fine because it's open, it's on the internet. But that's not something as an agency that we tell everybody just go do and not give the proper guidelines.
Gotcha. Yeah. I guess as an official, like sponsored by
Yeah,
the company type of yeah.
right.
Well,
Because also with ChatGPT, and I know there's a new one on Google, or there's one that's really up and coming, the Gemini. They are free. You can sign up for free, but to utilize all the resources, there's paid subscriptions. So that's also something you don't want to be pushing out there, and then people start saying, "Well, I bought a subscription, y'all gonna pay for it?" So yeah, that especially if it's not really related to their job, so that's something as well that people have to be mindful of, that you can go on for free, but it only limits you to a certain amount of things. And if you want to utilize it to its fullest, they have actual paid subscriptions. So that's another caution of before you start telling everybody at your job, go ahead and use it. Remember that somebody be like, well, I got the $50 a month subscription. Where's my reimbursement? So that's something to be mindful of.
yeah, that is super interesting. I know at our office we base everything in the Google Suite. So when you talked
Mm-hmm.
about Gemini, that rings a bell. And I know here our system administrator has some controls over that because we pay for it, right? You mentioned
Right.
the paid stuff, right? And so
Right.
we do have a little bit of access to that. And I hear you, without the training behind it, it's like a tool that is kind of out there, but we're not asking you to use it right now because we don't really know how to ask you to use it. I mean, all of the hows, like how to ask you, and
Right.
then what how you would use it, when you use it, all of that kind of stuff. So we're still kind of feeling it out
Yes,
there.
because it can benefit everyone. Don't get me wrong, but is it something that's part of their day to day? And like you said, when we start asking people to use it, when to use it, how to use it, what subscription, if they have to get a subscription, then it has to go into, is it something for their everyday job? And not every agency, depending on what they're, even for us, not all of our roles require all of that. So yeah, it's not something that we just go out and tell everybody, yeah, just go do it.
Yeah, I've got a bonus question for you related to
Uh-huh.
that. And it's something that we thought about early on at the association, and I'd like to get your take on it too. So do you have any like kind of rough policies right now prohibiting the use of AI in particular areas? Like if there's sensitive areas. For us, we sort of outlaw AI note-taking tools in our committee meetings because we don't have access or control over the recordings that happen and that sort of thing. Just to give an example. So, is there something like that that you pay attention to now, or any
Not at
blanket
the moment because
cautions?
not enough people, I don't think not enough people use it or have the role where they use it to where we've had to censor or things. Even
Yeah,
our management team, we're still in the breath of grasping AI. So we don't have any policy of that.
gotcha. All right. Good to know. It's all coming so fast. It's
Too fast.
like on our doorstep, I know. Okay. Real good. Well, we have gotten to the part of the presentation now where you get to ask questions of Crystal. So, Jim, I see you're out there in the audience, and I'm sure you've got maybe one thought that you could share. Maybe something that we can ask Crystal for more information on.
I'm impressed with how Crystal has approached this cautiously and a step-by-step basis and try it out and see if it works and then advise others about how they might use it. I just think you're on the right track, Crystal, in terms of very carefully exploring this one step at a time. We've had a couple of people in another organization I'm in that fell down the AI rabbit hole and are still trying to get out, you know. It sounds like you're not going to have that much trouble with it. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. Well, if other questions come in, Crystal, if somebody asks me a question, may I pass that on to you for a response?
Yes.
All right. Sounds good. So if anybody has questions for Crystal, you're watching this on a recording, go ahead and send them to me, and we'll get them over to Crystal. If you haven't had a chance to join our HR group and you're in the HR field, we invite you to do that too. And for this particular session, we'd love to hear your feedback on how things are going here. So, if you've got a smartphone, you want to scan a QR code, I've got one of those to share here. And then we'll follow this up with the link when we send out the recording to those who are registered, so you can provide your feedback there too. Alrighty. Okay, well, Crystal, thank you so much for joining me today. This is so valuable to hear somebody actually using AI tools in the field, have gone through the learning experience, kind of rolled up your sleeves and just took the bull by the horns, I suppose, right? And just kind of figure it out as you go, and still figuring it out. So applaud that effort. Thank you, Jim, for that nod. I know you've had some time in the network and seen technologies come and go, but this one is definitely something that's here to stick around for a while. So very glad to hear your positive remarks there. Cool. Okay. Well, everybody, please join us for the next one and take care.
Have a good one.